Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We are one day closer to the NHL trade deadline. Let's see, it's 3 minutes. It's 8 minutes after 3, so that's less than 4 days. Less than 4 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, 4 days. So 4 days until the NHL trade deadline, and we've already had two significant deals. One is a big deal. One is a smaller deal, but still has some significance. We'll talk about that. Eck will be joining us in a few minutes. We'll start off with this, and this is our pre-show. Usually, Russ is the one who provides the humorousness when it comes to the pre-show, but I'll do it today. And I have to say, I'm not easy to please. That goes without saying, but. I think there's a reason for that because I come up against such crap around, where I have reasonable expectations when I go someplace for a donut. I expect the donut to be a good donut. I expect it to be tasty and made the right way and whatever. And you order something in the drive-through and it's what you ordered.
Right.
Now, it's well chronicled that I'm a pain in the ass when it comes to fast food ordering because I have learned the lesson being somebody who worked for a day at McDonald's to know how they let things sit around for minutes and hours on end that when I order a hamburger, I order without something that they normally put on the burger. So I get it fresh, relatively fresh. Mm-hmm. I'm a pain in the ass because then I look in the bag and make sure that they've done that correctly. Otherwise, I go inside and say, give me my burger the way I want it. Okay. So yesterday, I went to a donut establishment named after a Hall of Fame hockey player. Will not specify what one or what particular location.
No.
But I went in the morning. I went to the drive-thru. I was on the phone with Russ Cohen at that particular time because Russ was driving. And I said I would like a Boston cream donut and a lemon poppy seed muffin. Simple order. No coffee, just those two things. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was talking to Russ, so I just gave them my card. Excuse me, gave them my card. They gave me the card back. Of course, I don't look in the bag. Now, I take out the Boston cream donut, and it's a Boston cream donut. No problem. I take a bite into it, and I get dough.
It wasn't filled. It was a non-filled donut?
It was, okay, if the donut is this big, usually the center is maybe an inch and a half in diameter. I got to the other end of the donut, and the pocket was about the size.
Oh, it exploded out of the other side?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was off center, and it was about maybe a half an inch. It was you get to the end of it, and there was a half an inch of friggin' cream, Bavarian cream or Boston cream. I'm like, okay, I'm friggin' ripped off there. So then I get to the coffee place, which I like their coffee, but their baked goods are not that great. So hence the reason I stopped at the establishment that shall not be named. I open up that bag, and instead of getting a lemon poppy seed muffin, I got this monstrosity that's sort of it's like the Frank Gorshin character in the original Star Trek, half white, half black. Well, this was half of a banana muffin, half of some odd strawberry thing with cream cheese on the inside of it. It was disgusting. I mean, okay, I took 2 bites out of this, said no, and threw it in the garbage. So I will never go to that particular place again. I'll go to other established places of that company of a hockey Hall of Famer that will be not named, but they lost me as a customer.
I understand. I would be pretty hacked off as well if you swing and miss that bad.
Yeah, just
on an order.
I don't know what the name of the episode is, but if you look up on IMDb, Mob Talk Radio. Frank Gorshin, yes, he was the Riddler in Batman in the Batman series.
No, but he did have an episode, I think, in the original in Star Trek. I remember
it was a statement on racial relations, because it was a planet that half the people were white on the left side and black on the right side, and the other people were vice versa. Yeah. It was a commentary on race relations. Yes. But in the typical Star Trek, they had to make it like on another planet in the 23rd century. So anyway, we'll get started. Like I said, Eck will be joining us in a very few minutes. Mm-hmm. We hope. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, April the 8th, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Center Ice Philly Magazine.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with the trade last night. It's rather significant. It's the first big move of the deadline. It's the first of many dominoes that will fall. The New Jersey Devils traded Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac for a 2021 first-round pick to the Islanders, or a 2021 first-round pick, a conditional draft pick, A.J. Greer, and Mason Jobst. Mm-hmm. Now, the other key to this deal is that the Devils retained 50% on both Palmieri and Zajac. Now, okay, and I'll get your opinion on this first, but let me just say this. Tom Fitzgerald came out after, and I get why he says this, and it's a nice thing to say, but he's like, I hope we get the 32nd pick, meaning I'm rooting for these guys.
It was a bit, and I understand it. He wants to show respect to those players that were a key part of their organization. I thought it was a bit of an overreach in the trying to be classy department.
Yeah, I mean, because
it was like literally like almost like, to me, Fitzy was basically almost falling over himself.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when you're an organization that had the top pick 2 of the last 4 years, okay, I can understand. Well, but no, as a general manager, you want the highest pick you can get. So not to say you wish them ill, you wish them success. But I wish them, if like in my secret heart of hearts, I'm hoping they lose in the first round so I get a higher pick.
You would think in this circumstance, but again, they are. I guess they want to. I do wonder as well as, again, what are the contract statuses again? So Palmieri
they're both rentals.
There's a very good chance they could end up back with the Devils for all we know. That's my thinking on this, is that if you're being that. That makes actually in this, and that's what I thought, because now that kind of commentary makes more sense, because again, if you're looking to bring those players back,
right? Now I don't know.
That's praise. That, I mean, it's a bit over the top, but I get why potentially that you're doing that level of praise.
Now I don't know whether Zajac is if he's over with, if he's done with, this is the last year of his career, if he's going to retire, maybe he goes back to the Devils. This was his chance of winning a Stanley Cup.
Because last year he had a chance to go to the Islanders and didn't go.
Right, and that's why I think like Russ and I were talking about another player who's in his late 30s, who has some sort of no trade, no move protection, who might approve because he might retire, but we're not sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Zajac might have approved this deal because he is retiring, and this is a chance for him, his one last shot at winning a Stanley Cup. We don't know. I'm just saying, that was part of the mix here. But obviously, the Devils wanted to re-sign Palmieri. We heard that leading up to the last couple of weeks, right. And then it sounded like it wasn't going to happen, at least not right now. So they got the most that they could. But right. This is my issue. Okay, I'm not casting aspersions on A.J. Greer and Mason Jobst. Russ thinks that Mason Jobst can be a third, fourth line NHLer. I don't know. He's played 2 years in Bridgeport, hasn't really shown much. So I'm not gonna say, okay, that's impossible, but he's not an established NHLer. He's not somebody who a lot of people think is going to be. He's not Kiefer Bellows. He's not one of their top prospects. And A.J. Greer has been on 2 or 3 teams, so they got nothing in terms of now players. They got a first-round pick in 2021, and then the topper of it all is the retention. They retained $5 million.
Yeah.
And all they got was a conditional fourth. I mean, I'm sorry.
To me, that's the Devils basically saying we want to open the doors for some of the younger players in the organization to take bigger roles, more ice time, and we're willing to take it on the chin for the salary wise for the remainder of the year in order to see what we have, because obviously the Devils are not going anywhere this year. That's to me what they're trying to do. It seems to be a high premium to pay, though.
Yes,
and open up that kind of ice time. And
this is the thing that I don't think many people have thought about. Teams are only allowed to retain salary on 2 players, I believe. It's 2 or 3. I'm pretty sure it's 2.
Mm-hmm.
They can buy out 3, but I think they can only retain on two players. Right. Okay, so they retained on 2 players in one deal. So now players like Sami Vatanen or Kulikov or Ryan Murray, other UFAs that they may want to trade, they can't retain any salary to make those deals. So that's
either they're not planning on making more moves, or they have an idea of who they're going to, amongst that group, who they're going to deal next for retention, and have that already planned and in place. That's the way I would look at that. That they're going to probably move off, if the Devils are going into a full-on sell, a guy like maybe Murray.
Murray's making, I believe, 3, and I'm not looking at Cap Central right now, but I think he's making 3.875 or something like that. And I'll be able to pull up in 1 second, and it is 4.6. Excuse me. So good luck. Good luck. They're gonna have to find a third team to be able to retain salary, like a middleman team to retain salary, or it's going to be a team that can fit 4.6 under the cap. So I don't think they're moving Murray or it's going to be.
Honestly, I'm thinking the same thing here, is because again, if you're doing this these are the 2, and it also gives you where the Devils are prioritizing their ice time too. If they're willing to move off those 2 forwards in the same deal and retain,
right,
they've got some plans for those slots.
Now, I think they'll move Kulikov. He's making 1-1. I think they'll move Vatanen.
Yeah, they'll be able to move. I think they'll be able to move either of those 2 with relatively no salary retention.
And with the need for goaltending out there, I think they'll actually move Aaron Dell, even though, if Russ was here, he would laugh. But because he doesn't think Aaron Dell can stop a beach ball. But I think they'll move them because they're going to get at why not? Unless you're going to sign them to extensions.
Exactly, and that's how I would look at it there in terms of how the Devils are kind of planning this out.
Now, okay, and I want to get X's opinion on this, and he'll be coming in a couple minutes. Somebody, I think it was David Pagnotta, asked the question: how does this affect the value that Buffalo gets for Taylor Hall? Because now the interesting thing was Darren Dreger said after this deal was done that the Islanders had checked in with Buffalo before they even went toward Palmieri on Hall and then moved on, meaning that the price that was being asked by Kevin Adams was too much. And the report is that the price that they're asking for right now is a number 1 and a prospect, and not Mason Jobst and AJ Greer. I mean, I'm assuming it means a significant prospect. So if that was the Islanders, it would probably have been something like a 1 in Kiefer Bellows.
Yeah, and I can see why the Islanders would have balked.
Right, and I actually think, and this was the debate we had yesterday over the last couple of days: is Taylor Hall or is Palmieri a better fit with the Islanders than Taylor Hall? Well, maybe he's a better fit, and maybe the price was better too. So it was 2 for 2, and that's why they did it. But as for Pagnotta's question, I think this probably improves the leverage that the Sabres have to get a first-round pick, because now Palmieri is gone.
Yeah, he's off the market. So now, but again, I would think a team like Boston, although I don't know necessarily Boston's going to be going after Hall in this case, but we know the Bruins were in the market, obviously, for another forward. They were one of the ones that were quoted as being interested in Palmieri, but obviously not. Yeah.
LeBrun said Boston and Toronto were in on Palmieri. Now, okay, I think the Leafs would be in on Taylor Hall if his salary was an $8 million.
Right.
And we know that the Sabres are going to retain 50% to make it $4 million. The Leafs would probably have to find another team to chop that in half again, which is easier said than done to fit them under the cap. So I don't know whether that will fly. I think the Leafs, they're looking for a forward, but they're looking for somebody who probably makes in the 5.5 range that can be stopped in 2, and then they can fit them. But so I don't know.
I think Adams is. Again, the market for him is going to be really, for Halls, is an interesting one to see develop. I think there's a bit of more attempt at market creation, obviously, by Adams, by some of the maneuvers that he's made. But how robust the market will be remains to be seen. That being said, does Palmieri being off the market help things along? I think it does, but to what degree is my question.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's being asked by Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean,
and again, you have to consider the fact that we can't get around the elephant in the room, that is the lack of production, absolute lack of production from Taylor Hall. We know he's capable of better, but his numbers are what they are.
I think that the team, I mean, this isn't going to stop general managers from lowballing an inexperienced general manager and Adams to see if they can get him for cheaper than a number 1 and a prospect. But if he sticks to his guns, at a certain point, it's like he's going to make the best deal that is out there, and he's going to do it in advance of Monday.
And that's the balance he's trying to deal with here. That's why I'm saying it's not you would think on the face of it, the Palmieri deal helps Adams.
Yeah.
It depends on, again, who is in
but
and what they're willing to give up.
There's a time frame, because what he risks, and I can't remember what deal it was, but there was a player that was traded maybe 3 or 4 years ago who everybody thought they were going to get a first-round pick and a top prospect and whatever, and the team waited too long, and they ended up getting it might have been the Vanek deal a few years ago when Vanek went from the Islanders to Montreal, and they ended up getting like a 3rd-round pick and
more than a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, right. But you know what I'm saying?
We're getting old.
Right. Yeah, my memory is shot. But they waited too long, and they didn't get any even close, because everybody's saying 1st-round pick and this and that, and it was like an hour before the deadline, and then Vanek moved, and it was a 3rd-round pick and some meaningless prospect who never did anything. And I'm like, that GM.
But it's also, I think it's also, Michael, a lesson for us that we've learned over the years that, there's a lot of water carrying that's done by insiders. Whether it's on behalf of agents or on behalf of general managers who are their contacts, to try to give the appearance of drumming up a market.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it is a dice roll.
Now, we were just talking about the Islanders Devils deal. Yeah. And without saying it, I think that Lou Lamoriello has compromising photos of Tom Fitzgerald, because this, and I'm joking, by the way, people, but honestly, I thought that the Islanders robbed them, because they got retention of 50% on both Palmieri and Zajac, and only got and they got a number 1, and that's good, but they didn't get much else. And the retention of almost $5 million in salary is worth more than a conditional 4th-round pick. So I thought Lou took them to the cleaners.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't many teams willing to take both of those guys, so that's one thing. I mean, you can say, for what it's worth, the New Jersey got not rid of, but I mean, they do believe that, honestly, still believe that they could maybe bring Palmieri back. They're not opposed. I think they had a long discussion with Palmieri, and I think that this is one of those instances where he might come back. I mean, there's nothing to go to the Islanders, right?
Yeah.
For Palmieri, he's not moving. He can still live where he lives. Just goes and plays for a different team. So, what he does next year when he signs his deal, I bet New Jersey's very much in, I bet they're very much one of the top teams. Zajac is a guy they've been trying to move for a while. As far as, money goes, he's definitely up there in years. And I think that was the big reason that they got that the Islanders had to give up less, was just taking him on. Now, from Lou's perspective and the Islanders' perspective, it's a little bit risky. I mean, because as much as you can say they robbed him, you're bringing in two pretty big personalities now into that room, not just one, and two guys that know each other too, which is can be a little clicky. Like when you bring in two guys like that,
But I would also counter and say, talk in the commentary from Andrew Gross from Newsday, knowing as he covered the Devils, and feels that those two players will fit that culture of that team. And that's the thing. And that's the reason why you do that deal, is because they fit not just from a need perspective, but also from a personality and mindset perspective.
Yeah, and don't forget, on top of those two players, Andy Green, who was a long-time Devil, is on the roster. Corey Schneider is I know that he took a leave of absence because of a situation with his family, but he's part of the organization. So it's like Devils, Devils Northwest, direction.
Because when Lou was in New Jersey, it was this uncanny. We talked about it many times, Mike, way back in the day. But that he had his group of people. That he had. They're always five players. They used to be like John Madden, Rafalski, Gianta. Was in this Brodeur, Stevens, Niedermeyer. These guys were completely. They basically talked to Lou about everything. Like if there was a trade coming, he would bring them in as a group and talk to them about, I think I might want to make this trade. He would do this. He really does believe in this kind of concept of having this core group of players,
right?
And that are close to the GM, which is really weird, and you don't see it in many situations. Didn't do it as much on the island, which was in Toronto, which was kind of surprising to me. I don't know if he didn't have the right guys, or if he just felt like there was so many layers in Toronto, which I think is more probably the case. In Toronto, there was Shanahan and other players too.
Well, I was talking about that on another podcast, and the dynamic in Toronto was he was working for Shanahan, and I think his power base was sort of usurped by that. He had power, he had control, but his job mainly was to be the brakes on Babcock, and I don't think he did it particularly well there, because remember I've railed about the trading second round picks for Placanitz and
I remember.
But yes, I'm sure, and Brian Boyle. But on top of that, he signs Nikita Zaitsev to a 7-year deal, and after 1 year, Babcock tries to change him into a defenseman that he's not. They go out and sign Patrick Marleau for $6.25 million and give him an extra year, and he doesn't. Going out the door, he doesn't sign. He decides not to sign Nylander before the third year of his ELC, when he could have signed him for a lot cheaper than he ended up having to sign him the following year, because he put up a big year. So a lot of things that Lamoriello, and this is why Lamoriello is not thought of as much esteem in Toronto as he is in other places. Those were faux pas, but that may have been because he had to sort of share power and he didn't have unilateral control.
And I think that was it. Because also, another reason that Lou does this is it helps get guys signed. When you have this group of core players, they will sign for less. They'll take a hometown discount to stay together. There's a whole concept, and the Devils, they lived on this for a very long time. And the Islanders are trying to do the same thing now. There have been some good players that have left this Islanders team, obviously, but the Islanders team is still, really just getting better and better and better. So what they've done is they've managed to find the right guys that they want in there.
He did it with Eberle at the Islanders. He did it with Pajot after the trade. And in Toronto, he did it with Kadri and Riley. He got them on long-term economical deals. But it wasn't as consistent in Toronto as it had been in New Jersey, and it is sort of going right now with the Islanders.
Yeah, and you think it has to do with the amount of control.
Yes.
Toronto is such a big entity. And also the fact that you can pull these guys aside in New Jersey, go into a bar, somewhere up in, Piscataway or whatever and talk, and it's not going to be a big deal. Like you can't do that in Toronto. So it's a different kind of situation.
Oh, not this year, but not in the last year and a half, though.
Yeah, well, for sure.
We're gonna pull you into this. We're gonna pull you into the Zoom bar. Take the drinks on the table. We'll talk over some prosecco over Zoom.
Limoncello.
As much as they fit in, as much as and I agree, with the fact that these guys are going to fit into the Islanders. They are, because there's a certain kind of player that Trotz and Lou put together, and these guys are that, so that should fit in perfectly well. they still are taking somebody's job. This is the thing that happens when you make a trade at the trade deadline. Like somebody that's been part of this Islanders team is not going to play because Palmieri is going to play. And Zajak's going to play.
He's just replacing Lee. I mean, but maybe
Palmieri. Yeah, exactly. You're replacing Palmieri replaces Lee. Now the Zajac fit. Yeah, he's playing center. That makes things really interesting when you have Barzal, Nelson, Pajot, Cizikas.
Right. Yeah.
That's again, but they're going to play. I know the plan is tonight against the Flyers. They are going to play Zajac at center with, I believe it'll be Palmieri, and I forget who's going to be on the other wing. But they're definitely going to play them together for the first game.
Komarov is the guy who probably gets the seat up in the press box.
But again, Leo is a soul. He's a soldier. He'll do what's asked. So
he'll do his best to do. But there are guys in that locker room that will be pissed off that Komarov is sitting and Zajak's in the lineup. That will happen because that's the reality.
It is a business at the same time. It's from a skill perspective, and they're trying to strike while they have a chance. Those players will be like, it's Travis Zajac. He's got a lot of experience. He can help us.
Now they will, but I'm just saying that there is. It depends on chemistry. Like I was talking to somebody out in Minnesota.
They've got time to do it, but they have a little bit of time here to do that to see how things will fit.
No, they do. I want to ask you this question because we were talking about this before you came on, and I saw David Pagnotta yesterday after the trade said, does this help the leverage that Buffalo has in terms of what their demand for Taylor Hall? And now I think it does, but there's a window on this, because if he waits too long, if he waits till Monday, then the competition for Hall, if there probably is 3 or 4 teams that are interested, I think they evaporate because they go someplace else if he's holding out till the last minute. I think he's got to strike while the iron is hot in the next 24 to 48 hours and not get anywhere close to Monday.
I would be somewhat surprised and concerned if Hall isn't traded by like 5 o'clock tomorrow night.
Okay.
Yeah, Lefty, just based on what I heard, they don't want to go into the weekend with this uncertainty, because the trade deadline being on a Monday is also interesting, right? Because usually, as you know, it's been on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And that is different because I like it better on Monday in a lot of ways. If there was permanently be on a day of the week, I think Monday's better. Tuesdays tends to be like a game. We have like nine games in that night. And this year we have tons of games on every night anyway. But I always liked that there were not that many games to give these guys a chance to get into their new teams and play the next day, the next game. But having it on a Monday means that this weekend becomes a lot more intense, because usually there was that Monday before the trade deadline that play where people could still screw around and try some things to see if they get something to fly. So that's what I believe Friday, tomorrow, becomes that day, and because the weekend is it's just everyone's traveling, or the weekend is tough because teams are always on the move. So we'll see how this plays out. But I think that if it's not done by tomorrow night, then they really market for him, which I don't think they do. And I will say that Winnipeg is a new X factor in the Taylor Hall sweepstakes.
Yeah, okay. The only that surprises me, unless the injury, the concussion to Blake Wheeler is more serious than we've been told, which is possible.
I think
but you would think, based on looking at their roster and looking at their issues and looking the fact that they've lost Nathan Beaulieu for the year on the blue line, and he's a depth piece, but they have a lot of young guys like Heinola and Sandberg, but they're loath to put them into a situation where they're going to be playing major minutes. They're looking for a top 4 defenseman, and it would be surprising, unless Wheeler goes on LTIR because of a concussion, that they'd be able to fit a Taylor Hall even at $4 million. I would think they're after Savard. I mean, the more than they're after.
Oh, they are. But the Savard, like I said before, the Savard prices are so high in Columbus. I don't know if Columbus is 100% wanting to trade. I mean, and that's what we still don't know. It feels like they should be, but Whether or not they will be, I mean, there are teams that you would think would be on Savard that are saying they're not, which makes me very curious as to why they're not. You know, whether or not they don't believe that Columbus is going to trade them, whether the price is just ridiculous.
I think it's the latter. I think it's probably the ask right now is what's making people balk.
I think Columbus is in full sell mode, and I think people are trying to say, okay, you're asking for way too much. Will you come back to us when it's more reasonable?
Yeah,
maybe they get somebody to take. Maybe they get somebody to pay that price.
Now, another possibility is, and I guess after we haven't yet addressed the Florida-Chicago deal, but there is space that Florida has now banked.
Yeah.
I
mean, the question is, in what direction are they banking it? Are they banking it for defense, which you would think it would be the area that they would look at?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
This is the
thing. Are they maybe looking at a haul?
But this is the thing, Anthony. I was thinking the same thing until I looked at Cap Friendly, and okay, they cleared $3.5 million in Brett Connolly's salary. The rest of the deal was basically taxi squad guys for minor league guys, etc. So they didn't count against the cap.
Wow. Yeah.
But Connolly, he's under contract for 2 more years after this year. So this was more of a down the line clearing, according to Cap Friendly. With Ekblad on LTIR, they've got $18 million in deadline space.
It's insane, and you know, I can't remember a team that was in the top 3 or top 5 teams in the league going into a trade deadline with that kind of cap space ever. Like, I was trying to think about it. I was trying to remember like the last time a team was a top 3 team that had almost $20 million in cap space. And you think and it doesn't mean they're going to use it at all. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, they also have a good chemistry thing going. I mean, they moved out players that weren't playing for them, picked up, cap space, but not just for this, but you can't minimize how important cap space is going to be this summer coming up.
Right.
So it's not just, and if they saw the opportunity here, and obviously what they did, which was kind of a smart move, is they take, what's his name? The big player that Chicago won in this trade was the guy who hasn't signed yet, right?
Oh, Bergstrom, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He could turn out to be a good player, right? So
he's. I mean, okay. I talked to Russ about this. I mean, Bjorkstrom, he's had a couple opportunities, but they haven't really given him like major ice time. Stillman is a good prospect. Borgstrom is a good prospect. And I mean, Chicago is rebuilding, and both of those guys are cheap. So, the thing is, they basically sold cap space with Connolly. They had the cap space. They have cap space because Seabrook is done for his career. We don't know what's going on with Jonathan Taves. They have a lot of cap room, and Chicago could be a team that sells cap room at the deadline, that they become a middleman in trades. So,
I think it'd be hard to judge this trade for Florida until the summer, in some ways. I think,
or maybe at the deadline, but definitely in the summer.
They already had enough space at the deadline. I mean, to me, that's why I think this is more of an interesting trade for down the line, because they already had $15 million at the deadline. Now they have 18.5. It's like how much can they possibly bring in, and do they want to screw with their chemistry? That's the issue, right? So
the one thing that you have to factor in here is they gave up 2 significant prospects just to clear $3.5 million off their salary.
Significant prospects that they don't like. See, that's the thing. You have to remember that. They've seen these guys and they're not convinced. They don't believe that they're going to be NHLers. So in their mind.
Well, I'm not specifically saying this about Zito, but I'm saying this about all general managers. They value the prospects that they pick more than the prospects that they inherit. And he inherited Bjorkstrom and he inherited Stillman. So to use them as a piece to clear $3.5 million off of his cap, I understand it completely. But I still think that those 2 players might be usable and useful for Chicago down the line. And Connolly has played well in the playoffs before with Washington. I think he won a cup with Washington, with Boston back in the day. It wasn't as good in Tampa. He's not a bad player. It's just the term on that deal.
Yeah, he wasn't playing for them either. I mean, he really wasn't.
And Bjorkstrom stayed in Europe, I believe.
Bjorkstrom did stay in Europe, and they didn't like that. I mean, they basically put it out to him. It's like, we need you here now. And he didn't come. So the issue is they have, like you say, he has seen some time here, and he has seen just they had him here, and he has at moments looked really good, but. And talking to people at bars today, they admit that they could turn out to be a really big loss. It could turn out, but they just don't think it will be, because just based on what they've seen so far. So
it also comes from the player too. I think he wanted to. I think Florida wasn't of interest to him to stay there. So maybe he was looking again. Maybe he was looking at a larger market like Chicago. Again, Chicago, maybe the perfect window for him to say, "Hey, there's an opportunity." Yeah.
Well, we also have to say we also have to say this, that the book on Joel Quenneville continues. Joel Quenneville likes certain players, and Joel Quenneville, when he decides he doesn't like a player, that guy is dead to him. You remember? Who I can't remember. Veteran defense. Trevor Daley. When Trevor Daley was acquired by Chicago, great signing. He's a veteran guy. Just didn't like him. Just wouldn't play him, and they got rid of him within half a year. He decides on a player quickly, and if he loves him, he'll play him 25 minutes a game. And if he doesn't like him, you're dead to him.
Yeah, I mean, there was a moment when that trade happened where I thought, oh man, are they going to do what they had talked about doing before and bringing in Duncan Keith? That did occur to me as I was watching this thing go on, because I heard that.
I think we all thought, and it might be a precursor, I think, to something else. Possible.
Yeah, I think they're going to do something. I think they are definitely going to get a defenseman. Now, whether or not but they, like I said before, they didn't need this extra $3.5 million to do that. This is really more about the future. This is really more about the summer, where the summer cap space is going to be very, very hard and very hard to come by. And this, for people, that cap space could be incredibly valuable for them. And I think that's what they say, as it plays out here. I really do. So to me, that's a real big issue. We have Russ getting ready here as we.
Yeah, I think he's looking. Yeah, he's looking for his headphones. So
worries at all. But it wouldn't surprise me now to see a couple other things I've heard today. I mean, I mentioned Hall and Winnipeg. I also heard Braden Coburn tied to the Islanders as and this makes some sense, I think, in terms of getting another experienced guy if you're going to make a long playoff run, especially this year. Because talking to some GMs, they said they think that you're going to need a whole lot of depth going into the playoffs, because by the time you get to the playoffs, you're going to be beat. Like, you're going to be beat up, and you're going to have injuries. You're going to need to go 8, 9, 10 defensemen probably. Who knows? But it's going to be that kind of. They feel like it's going to be that kind of season, that the playoffs are going to be so tricky. Like, the thing about last year's playoffs in the bubble, teams came in incredibly fresh, right? And they came in, and that's why the playoffs from some of those games were great, because the teams were all healthy and everybody was fresh. This year, people are going to come in just completely spent. The playoffs are going to feel like a walk in the park, because you're going to have like an every other day situation, for the most part. You're not going to play back-to-back games, so that's going to be acting.
Russ, at that point about 25 seconds ago, when you had the ball of wire, I would have been ready to throw that off a balcony.
Listen, I was walking all the way around this arena with a bunch of media guys. We had nowhere to go, and it's 85 degrees out. So I took off my sweater. I'm just in like a
and
t-shirt.
You wore black.
and then I finally get there, and I see like Chris Peters, I see Woden. But they're all the way down there. But I'm happy to be here. I'm at the place where you say the team is going to choke at PPG Paints Arena, which they're not going to choke. But
why do I say that?
Well, okay. Give us.
You said that the other day.
Yeah, you said You said Philadelphia could catch Pittsburgh.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's just catch up with Russ here. I want to get your opinion on the Islanders Devils deal and your opinion on the Blackhawks Panthers deal.
Okay, so the as far as the Islander Devil deal, I want to just caution people. Just because Mason Jobst is 27 years old, it doesn't mean he's not going to make it in the NHL. Best example I could give, and look, we're not talking the same level. Joe Burrows was like 28 when he got drafted in the NFL. It happened.
He's 24.
24? Well, there was somebody else. Who was the guy from the Panthers? He was older.
Oh, Chris Wanke. I mean,
you're forgetting also from the Eagles, the offensive lineman who was the fireman.
Yes, that's right.
There's a more.
But my point is, he went to 4 years of college at Ohio State. He was a really good player. He was a captain. He's an offensive defenseman. He's a little bit of a smaller guy, but you know what? he's only played 56 pro games. Like he hasn't even played a full AHL season. So I do think the Devils got a defenseman out of this. He's a bottom pairing guy, no question. But you know what? They did get a defenseman. Greer, you can plug in there once in a while. He's not that good a player. But the fact that they did get a first made me think that Fitzgerald did well, because I think if Buffalo could have gotten a first for Taylor Hall, he'd have been traded already. So I think this is where Fitzgerald actually made out of it.
See, I
think the first round draft will get moved. I will say that.
We were saying it before. I personally think this gives Buffalo more leverage to get a first, because now Palmieri's off the board.
No, I don't know about that.
I'm not as sure on that. I still don't feel that, Mike.
And Palmieri and Hall that really weren't necessarily the same teams either. They're even though they're the two top, maybe two of the top forwards, they weren't necessarily all the same team.
Well, I mean, and you can choose to believe or not believe, but Drager said that the Islanders checked in on Hall before they checked in on Palmieri, and that basically they moved off Hall and went to Palmieri. So
I think that's the same check that I call with my parents to see if they're still alive, like a health check, and then I hang up. I think that's the kind of check.
On you. I mean, I've checked on Palmieri for the last 3 seasons, so I don't know how that possibly is the truth. I mean, they've been talking about Palmieri forever. I mean, it
wasn't me that reported it.
Russ, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. On you, I thought he was I'm sorry. Keep getting in your way. Go ahead.
No, he is a center. I'm sorry. I just walked into the building. Yeah, he's a center.
Mm-hmm.
But
good, yeah.
But he actually.
All I'm saying about that is all I'm saying about that is the Devils. It's not like they had to check it on Palmieri. Like they know what Palmieri is. If anything, the one thing they had to worry about were the Islanders trading them. Were the Devils being willing to trade them, because this is a rivalry. But at the same time, they are in the same division, and I think the Devils think they're going to be able to get Palmieri back. So I don't think much of and that is a big thing, and it's a big wonder, but. They were really pretty confident about that. More confident than most teams I've talked to when they make a trade, for a guy that's expiring. So
now, Russ,
he's been there a long time.
What about the Connolly, Borgstrom, Stillman for Walmart and Lucas Carlson deal?
I mean, I think Brett Connolly could still play. I think Florida really was just trying to get rid of salary like they always are. I don't think there's a problem with Connolly, and actually in the playoffs he does very well. So I think the fact that they got him, and I think that they're going to do something with Henrik Borgstrom. Chicago could rehab Henrik Borgstrom pretty easily. It's not like he doesn't have talent. This guy has tremendous skill and he's a great skater. He just didn't put it together yet. But you know what? That's a good project for Chicago. So I really do like what Chicago did. And the other thing I was going to say about the Islanders, look, the Islanders did what they needed to do, and the fact that they got Zajac too was good for them too.
Don't you think there's a bit of a click possibility there, though, Russ? I mean, the Devils guys are so clicky. I mean, Palmieri and Zajac coming in together. Mm-hmm. I wonder about that. Like we're talking about, Komarov is going to be probably knocked out by Zajac, right? So if that's the case, then there's guys in that Islanders locker room, which is also a tight knit group, as all teams are right now. Especially during the pandemic, teams have gotten a lot closer, I feel. But that's also a tight knit group. They're going to sit there and see Zajac coming in, and after Komarov has led them all year, has been a guy, that is a bigger deal than people give it. It is. I
did want to mention one thing because it was hitting my head. Yost did play with Tanner Lisinski too, so those two were a big engine for that offense. Like Yost would get more points than even Lisinski, just to show you what he did, at least at the NCAA level. But yeah. I think Florida will do something else, but I think they're going to do it for short-term money, and that's why they got rid of the long-term money, because there's so much money. Like Mike told me, they're a lot under the cap. So
they have 18. I mean, that's why what I was saying before we came on is that they didn't really do this to make a trade now, because they already had $15 million. It's not like they cleared up space they needed to get, right?
Right.
They did, but cap space in the offseason, this offseason particularly, is going to be at a premium. And I think that they see that as these are 3 guys that weren't going to be part of their playoff run in their minds. They weren't going to
management. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think management told Zito, look, you need to save for next year, but you could spend X amount at the deadline this year. I think he cleared that out because I think they're going to try and get Taylor Hall. And I think that's where basically the wash of money is going to come in for them for this year.
Well, but okay, this is the interesting thing here, Russ. So they've divested themselves now of Borgstrom and Stillman in this deal, and now you would assume that if they're trading for Hall, it's not going to be for just a first-round pick, or it could be for another prospect. They're like you said, they're not trading Lundell, they're not trading Denisenko. I mean, when they trade Owen Tippett, in a Taylor Hall,
I think they might trade Tippett because they're using him on the fourth line, and he is not a fourth line kind of player. So
yeah, I mean, they when I talked about talked to some people about giving up the like you said, the project kid in Lundstrom, right? I really Borgstrom. I was going to call him Fabian Brunstrom. I'm totally in a weird place there. That's wrong. So that's why I was like, and Brunstrom. I barely said it. I tried to just flip by, but thanks for correcting me. When they do that, they look at all the guys that they have coming. They have other guys coming that they can give up this guy and not worry about. They really like some of the players that don't even have over here yet, right? So that's to them. I do think they'll do something. I'm not guaranteed. I don't think it's going to be Hall though. I didn't get that impression at least. I mean, anything's possible. I don't get that. I don't get that.
Me though. I mean, it's going to be something.
I don't know whether they'd bring back Mike Hoffman.
No, they're not doing that.
It's not impossible. No, it's not impossible. Hoffman didn't leave there in a bad way, honestly. From talking around there, it was just a matter of basically them saying we'd like to keep you, but we simply can't. We simply can't pay without knowing whether fans are going to be in the building or not. Right. We can't do it. That was really the way Hoffman left. So it wasn't as if he left we think you're terrible. We're not going to offer you a contract. It was really came down to that, and I think that Hoffman kind of, from what I understood, just kind of understood it. And Hoffman just. Well, I get it. You're Florida. This is where we are. We don't know if there's going to be any money coming in at all at that point because this is before the season even starts. So we don't even know that there's going to be any fans in the building. So, I think Hoffman's not impossible. That's not an impossibility because they do know he fits, right? They do know
Now, the interesting thing is that, of the non-Taylor Hall forwards, I think the guy who's probably at the top of the list is Nick Foligno. And
is he really going anywhere?
Well, I think
the Islanders would have been the most. He would have been. They would have if they didn't get Palmieri, they would have pivoted to Foligno.
Let me just say what I was reporting. Aaron Portzline of the Athletic.
Don't worry.
I'm muting Russ just because there's something going on in the background there. Somebody. It looked like Brian. It's Brian Burke, isn't it? That's Brian Burke. I think that was Brian Burke. No,
it's not Berkey.
Okay. Aaron Portzline, I'll unmute you in a second, Russ. Aaron Portzline of The Athletic is reporting that they won't trade Foligno without his approval. But of course, he's got a no-move clause, so of course you can't do it. But the report is that the Avalanche, the Maple Leafs, and the Minnesota Wild are interested and that he would be only open to move in the right situation. Well, I can imagine him saying yes to Colorado and maybe yes to Toronto because I think they're legitimate Stanley Cup contenders. As much as I love the Wild this year, I don't think they're a legitimate contender right now. So no. I think Foligno would approve to those two.
Dark horse at the moment, I would call them.
Yeah, but I think he's going to move back. I think if they're trading Savard, they're trading Foligno too.
You want to know who the next best hot forward is? The next best hot forward, if the Rangers really are going to trade Colin Blackwell, he's like this year's Barclay Goudreau, I think, if they end up trading him.
Yeah, you wish. You wish.
Listen, he's got 10 goals.
I'm not taking anything away
from him. He's had a
really
really good season.
I know, but it's like found money, right?
Well, but that's what you find out.
But you know who could be the Barclay Goudreau? Scott Lawton, if the Flyers trade him.
Yeah, but they're not trading him.
I don't think they're trading him though.
It doesn't sound like they are. But here's the thing about, anything can possibly happen. Fletcher, he is unpredictable. Let's just throw it out there. He is very unpredictable.
I actually think he's more predictable than unpredictable lately because it's easy to predict if he's going to do nothing.
I think I think we have to wait until the off season before we could start getting into those conversations.
Yeah.
When it comes to Fletcher, I just feel like this market is just not advantageous for anything that's going to be. I don't want to say the ship feels like it's sailed on something major, but it has.
Something major, it has. I agree with you.
On something major, it died a little while ago, I think.
Well, I mean, the last major thing they tried to do was get Patrick Laine. That was the last big thing they tried to do in Philly.
Okay.
But let me finish your thought where you were talking about with the they are really from what I was understanding, both Foligno and Columbus are kind of like, this needs to be reported on more. They're kind of like torn up about this. Foligno does want to stay. He likes Columbus, and Columbus likes Foligno. So it's one of these situations. And remember, you had all these guys in Columbus that just left. So it's interesting that if Foligno does like it as much as I've heard he likes it, maybe they extend the guy. Maybe they figure out something. And maybe, I think that I think that's as likely as him being traded right now.
But who's to say that he doesn't go do what you're saying Paul Murray might do? Go someplace, try to win a Stanley Cup, and come back. I mean, I think that's just as likely. Now, Portsline just reported that David Savard is being held out.
Yes, that I did see. He's being held out.
That doesn't mean it's imminent, but it probably means
it's market. It's called market at this point now. It's a combination of saving the asset, but also,
I mean, I could give
trying to create the appearance of the market.
I could give you a Yarmo update. He was about 300 feet from me at the All-American Prospects game, and he wasn't on his phone during the game that I noticed. So just so you know.
Yeah, it's funny. He goes to a lot of prospect things, doesn't he? He's a big prospect guy.
He might even be at the Frozen Four too. He might do the same thing I did and come to the Frozen Four too.
Yeah, it would make sense if you were traveling around in that area. I think there are going to be gems there for sure. I don't know. You gotta tell us who you see there, but there's definitely going to be guys there. The Foligno, you're right on Toronto and Colorado. Sure, those are two teams. An outsider of Foligno, and again, Capitals-wise, I'm not quite sure how, but are the Washington Capitals, I was told. People keep forgetting about the Capitals in these things, but the Capitals are also the top team right now. The second best team, or they've been arguing back and forth with the Islanders at the top of the division. Well, the Caps are a good team, and they see themselves as having a chance here. And they're completely invisible in everybody's trade rumors. You notice that? It's really kind of strange.
I'll one up you in terms of a surprise, because I couldn't believe this when I heard it, and I think it was Elliot Friedman that mentioned it a couple days ago, that the stealth rumor regarding David Savard is Tampa, and I don't know how the hell in the world Tampa would fit Savard. But,
they're going to trade somebody. That's what they're going to trade a player.
Precisely, exactly. Somebody's going to go the other way.
Or they get Yarmo to retain half.
Can I make one additional comment here to our good buddy here, Michael Cohen? When has Fletch been advantageous, Anthony? His best deal was Pitlick. Hayes.
Yeah, no.
And he made the trade for Niskanen.
Don't acknowledge Michael. Don't acknowledge.
Yeah, Mike. All right, Mike. Yeah,
he's
all right, Michael.
He's a troll and he's getting banned.
Yeah. Okay.
But there is. I don't want to get into it, but somebody has to call out Kevin Hayes. Somebody has to call out Kevin Hayes right now, because he is really
calling out Kevin Hayes would be fair. He's been invisible.
Yeah, but we're talking about his impact last year versus this year. I would absolutely agree on that front. But if you can't put it all in just one little prism.
I mean, if you were to say like a month into the season this year, I would have said that that's the greatest signing ever, because the Flyers he was great last year. He was great in the bubble. He was great in the beginning of the year, but he is really vanished. He's really become like the Kevin Hayes that Winnipeg and New York can wait to get rid of. He's become that right now, where he's just virtually invisible. I mean, really not even touching. Like, the amount of times he touches the puck in a game versus what he usually does is astonishing. So anyway, let's move on from that. Go
ahead.
Go ahead, Russ.
I do think is going to be. I do think at the end of the day, Foligno will get moved. But all I'm talking about with this thing is that there is definite possibility that he resigns, because there's absolutely, this is a guy that, it should be mentioned, that wants to stay in Columbus. Like, people always rip about Columbus. Here's a guy who wants to stay in Columbus.
Right, and that's all fine and good, but we know that, especially with Columbus in the post year after they went for it when they shouldn't have gone for it. They are bereft of draft picks. So if they can shop Savard and shop Foligno and get a boatload of draft picks, or at least enough that makes up for the picks that they lost over the last few years, then then re-sign Foligno, then that makes a lot of sense for Yarmo.
I do want to mention one other guy. I do think there's a chance that St. Louis makes a hockey trade for Jaden Schwartz, because his contract is up.
Yeah.
Because he's a hell of a player. If you get him as a rental, that's a hell of a guy you could add to your team, and we haven't really talked about him much.
They're talking about Bozak's name's been mentioned in trade rumors. I hadn't heard Schwartz, but there was.
I've heard a little bit of Schwartz, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would go for him in a heartbeat if I could grab him. Yeah, I mean he does get hurt a lot, but he's definitely. Schwartz is definitely a game changer when he's on. When he's playing.
Hoffman and Bozak have been the two names that have been mentioned the most.
I've heard Hoffman in Montreal, which is the first I've written about forever. Feels like I've written Hoffman in Montreal so many years, many years now.
Well, okay. The two situations that are very interesting and will make our lives a living hell on Monday. The Brendan Gallagher broken thumb. He's out 6 weeks. He's out for the rest of the regular season. That gives Bergevin about $4 million in LTIR cap space that he can make another deal. But the chatter is that they're considering that move to be bringing Cole Caulfield up and not going outside of the organization and adding a salaried player. They're getting Armia back, and then they bring up Caulfield, and they don't really need to make another move. But
I think they will bring up Caulfield, but if they could get Tyler Bozak, I think they would consider it because they are a little short in the center position.
Yeah,
they actually. The chat room has this right. Actually, they really play what they do want. And Rand's right on this one. I heard this. It is Monahan. Monahan is the guy that the Canadians really want. I don't know. They don't know that they.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll get traded at the deadline. No. Probably in the summer. He get traded.
And the only way that deal happens is if Bergevin is willing to give away Kotkaniemi or Suzuki, because that's the only way that Calgary is trading their number one center. If they get somebody who they think at center will grow into a 1 or a 2, otherwise it makes no sense. Why would they do it?
Right.
And now there's
plenty of value for Monahan out there. Put it that way.
Yeah. The other thing is, and you've yet to see what's going on with this, is the Frederick Anderson situation in Toronto, because it is up in the air right now. They're still waiting on some sort of medical indication. Sheldon Keefe has basically said we're expecting him back. Everything is beautiful, but there's no specificity about what the injury is. If he goes on LTIR, then all bets are off. That means they're going after a goalie. Yeah. They're going after a forward. They're going after a defenseman.
I think you'll see Jonathan Quick. I really do. I talked to somebody about this.
No. It will not. It will not be somebody with terms. I'm telling you.
I don't know why you say that. I'm not the only person saying that either. I'm not the only. It's not like I'm making this about him.
I know. Whoever's telling you that. Trust me. Whoever's telling you that is wrong.
You don't know who's telling you that. I told you who was telling me that.
I don't care. They're wrong. They're not.
What if they work for the Maple Leafs that are part of the decision-making process?
Then they're wrong too. I'm telling you.
You might think it's the wrong thing to do.
I'm just gonna keep popping popcorn over here. I'll be hanging out.
No, I'm just saying it's impossible for you to sit there and say that whoever's telling me that is wrong until you know who I'm talking to.
Tell them.
Honestly,
even though Mike said you're wrong.
I mean, Mike doesn't like it.
Even though Mike wouldn't like it,
it doesn't make sense to me. But to sit there and the person I'm talking to is not wrong. They're
for a 35-year-old goalie with a spaghetti groin. That's great.
Even though Mike wouldn't like it.
Thank you for that imagery, Michael.
Yeah. I could see, honestly, Mike, I could see the Leafs going for Bernier and trading someone like Liljegren for the rental. I could see that happening.
It won't be Bernier. It won't be Bernier.
Don't know that. And you don't know it won't be Bernier.
It will be Ullmark or Rittich
unless another team gets him.
Yeah.
The problem with Ullmark and Rittich, and I'm talking to someone who I talked to in Toronto, is that they don't believe that Ullmark and Rittich they are looking to who they're going to turn to if they need to win a Game 7 and they got no one else. So they have to.
Right now, that guy's name is Jack Campbell.
Yeah, right now that guy's name is Jack Campbell, but
he is undefeated.
He's undefeated, but he also can't practice, right? Because he's nursing some injury. So it's like, come on, at some point here, if they are going to go to Ullmark or are they going to go to Bernier in a situation like that? And they honestly, I'm not saying that Bernier is their guy, but they want somebody who's been in that spot before. They don't want Ullmark who haven't been there before.
I can say this with all confidence after seeing Jonathan Bernier for 3 seasons in Toronto, seeing him play for LA and Anaheim and a few other teams. And in with Anaheim, he played, I believe, in Game 7 of a conference final. If you trade for Jonathan Bernier and you're playing in Game 7, you will lose. Just like if you trade for James Reimer.
I mean, you can't say that. Look what UC Marketing. UC Marketing almost. No, you can't say that, Mike.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Those are bad teams he played for. Some of those teams you're talking about. Those Toronto teams had no defense at all that he played for. Those Toronto teams were horrible defensively. I mean, it's like this is a much better Toronto team than that was.
No,
yes, it is a much better team.
But no,
I don't.
They're not going in that direction. Sorry.
No.
It's almost as if.
I don't know where to go from there. All right. Jeez. Let me look at my board. Let me look on my big board here. All right. Oh, how about Derek Brassard? Derek Brassard. Okay. This is a name that people aren't talking about too much, right? But I have
again.
I know every trade deadline.
Derek
right?
Brassard is Mr. Trade Deadline.
Really is.
One of the things we're going to do on the trade deadline is I'm officially going to induct players into the Trade Rumor Hall of Fame.
I nominate Thomas Campbell.
And we're going to talk about. We're going to actually have our first ever induction. I actually had my web designer go through and do a sort on every word I've ever typed and bring up the names I've mentioned the most since I started doing this 15 years ago. So let's see what happens.
Derek Brassard, you mentioned him. The reason he might be in the rumors is because he's got a lot of experience and he's only making $1 million. So
and he played pretty well for the Islanders last year in the playoffs, and that people remember that. Like there were moments he had a pretty good playoff.
Mac, I have a question to ask. When he's searching those names, do the misspellings count or no?
Yes. Because they were corrected by so they're not just
I do know the person who rectified them. Derek Kajula got placed on waivers.
It's not like you're in a stock. What's going on? We've lost your sound. Sounds really weird. I don't like your sound.
Sound check. No, it's probably the arena.
I'll mute it.
It's a sound check.
Not Russ. It's Mike.
No. It was Russ's sound cutting me off. That's what it was.
Okay. So okay. All right. Maybe.
No. I was saying Drake Kajula got placed on waivers today. He's only a $700,000 cap hit, and I think he's a fairly decent forward. Russ.
Yeah, he can penalty kill. He's a role player, and there definitely is a use for him somewhere.
Yeah.
He's a penalty killer. Flyers could use him.
Yeah. Well, the Flyers have not made a trade before tonight's game, like I said, so that tells me that they may indeed be sellers. I don't know. They may start be thinking that way. Let's see.
Okay, let me ask you this: it's all Philadelphia centric hockey writers and commentators. If Chuck Fletcher decided to trade Scott Lawton, what would he be asking?
You're going to look at least probably for. I mean, it's because again, he fills he can fill a lot of spots for a team.
Yeah, it would be a first rounder.
He's going to ask for a first rounder. Yeah, he's going to probably for Lawton, which is
I was going to say second prospect maybe. But
a second and a prospect might be the conversation there. Second and a prospect and a moderately and like a B plus level prospect probably.
Yeah,
one who would eventually fill into a potential role like Lawton's.
So Russ, if you were Chuck Fletcher and Kyle Dubas offers a second round pick and Timothy Liljegren for Lawton?
No. I think it's not enough.
No. Yeah. I don't know. Again, they got especially with defensemen in system already. I doubt that.
They like Zamula. Zamula's close. So it makes sense to bring in Liljegren.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lawton also really wants to be here too, which is another thing that and this flag Comcast does have. Ed Snyder used to have something really that if they really want to be here, they keep him here basically. But that is kind of one of the few things about the organization I think that has carried over a little bit. I've heard from people talking about that.
Yeah. I think they would probably, if they were to move off of Scott Lawton, to me it would be probably the off season that they would do that.
Well, he's a UFA. He's a UFA. I thought he was an RFA. According to Cap,
No, he's not an RFA.
He's a UFA, so he's a rental.
He's a UFA, but they're trying to they will extend him.
I think they will try to extend him.
If they extend him, then the question is moot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, once the trade deadline passes, I do think that there's a bit of I do think he could have been involved in a trade like for Ekholm. I think there's certain things that could have happened, but not. I don't think would they trade him for Josh Manson? I don't think they would.
I don't think Atlanta would unless they had him under.
Anaheim would want more.
Yeah, under a contract. He's
yeah.
I mean, it's nice. Okay, if Philadelphia.
I mean, that would be interesting. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
No, if I was to say Philadelphia wants to sign him to an extension, then it's probably going to cost him at least $4 million on a new deal. He's making 2.3 now, and you're saying he's valuable, and I agree. So, but if he is, you're either going to try to get him under contract before Monday at 3 p.m. or you're going to trade him because you don't know if you're going to lose him for nothing.
Heck, I do want to answer a question. The guy said, Nat says, Russ, gun to your head, poppy seed or sesame seeds on your bagel. I'm going to hope the chamber is empty on the gun. That's what I'm going to hope.
Yeah. By the way, Russ, I relayed my my donut / muffin tale for the pre-show. And I'm calling for a boycott of that particular donut shop.
It is disappointing when that happens.
Not the chain, but just that particular shop.
Yeah, it is disappointing. But give me a salt bagel. There you go.
There you go. All right, Russ, you got to get going. We're going to get going here. It's the college hockey starts. The game is in like 45 minutes, right?
45 minutes.
Yeah. So those games are they on the NHL Network or where are they?
I think it might be on the NHL Network. If not, no, ESPN. ESPN has it.
If not, follow at Sportsology.
Right.
Oh, that's Sportsology. Sure. Give you play-by-play. Please, Russ, I beg of you to tweet when the period ends, okay? It's my favorite thing in the world when people tweet the second period has come to an end. Please do that.
I will never do that.
Because whenever I am so tempted when people to retweet that and say, yep. When people, it just boggles the mind to me that reporters tweet the period has come to an end.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Anyway, all right. We will talk to you all tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey.